Well, hi. Today is Tuesday, September 16th, 2025. I'm Todd Studer, and this is Morning Coffee. As you know, with this show, we put a heavy focus on Iowa, but today we are going to travel across the river to Nebraska to talk with someone who's doing wonderful work both in Nebraska and in Iowa. You may have already heard about it. I'm not sure if you know about this man, though. It's Ed Shada. He is the CEO of Angels Share Incorporated, and he helped spearhead an effort that turned the old Dana College campus in Blair into Dana Village, which is helping homelessness, it's helping elderly, and it is also helping young people who have aged out of the foster care program. And we're going to learn about what Dana Village is, some of the great work they've been doing, their philosophy there. And it's a wonderful conversation. And I'm looking forward to bringing you that today. Again, Ed Shada is our guest today on Morning Coffee. Navigating the healthcare system is challenging, frustrating, and time-consuming for you and your family. That's where Miners Healthcare in Council Bluffs steps in. Nurse advocates providing one-on-one guidance and support every step of the way. With a dedicated nurse by your side, you get the right care from the right provider at the right time. Visit minershealthcare.com. Let them take the stress out of healthcare. If you're feeling stuck in uncertainty, conflict, or miscommunication, The Spiral of Accountability by Carol Horner, your guide to breaking free from the fog that clouds decision-making and relationships. This book, I think, is more important today than ever because we seem to have lost the ability to communicate with each other. And the events of last week, they are proof of that. You need to pick up a copy of The Spiral of Accountability with Carol Horner. And I'm telling you, this is it's a wonderful way to be able to recognize negative cycles, shift mindset, and build a culture of clarity and collaboration. This works at work, at home, and in your life. So go to spiralofaccountability.com to pick up a copy of your book, also available on Amazon. Start your journey to a healthier, more productive team. And if you're looking for a laid-back spot with great food and even better company, it's the Mile Away in Council Bluffs. They are open for lunch Tuesday through Friday from 11 to 2. This family-run bar and grill, your go-to for mouth-watering wings, unbeatable weekly specials, and a welcoming atmosphere that feels like home. It's one of my favorite places. Sometimes just to head out to a game, you go upstairs, hang out in Glitch for a while. They've built just a wonderful atmosphere, and the food is tremendous. The Mile Away, located on Old Lincoln Highway, just north of Council Bluffs. Joining us this morning, Mr. Ed Shada of Dana Village. We are going to learn about what that is, about everything that this, to me, very exciting project that has been created over in Nebraska that serves our area of Iowa. Ed, thank you so much for coming on and talking with us about this. I know that you and I just met, so we're going to learn about each other, and we're going to learn about what it is that you're doing there. So thank you.
Absolutely, Todd, and I appreciate you giving us an opportunity to tell our story. It's a wonderful thing what's going on up there, and hopefully it expands to other areas and grows and develops, and people pick up from what you're doing here and build it in their areas.
Well, you talk about up there. Where we're talking about is in Blair, Nebraska, and this is
Correct.
on the old Dana College campus, right?
Yes, it is. I had a 501c3, and Mr. Frank Krejci owned the campus, and I saw in the newspaper one day that he said he'd donate it to someone with the right idea. So I called him and started talking to him, and about 6 months later, at the end of 2017, he donated it to my 501c3. And it's kind of like, wow, this is great. 17 buildings, 500,000 square feet, 151 acres. And then it's, holy crap, now what do I do with this thing?
Well, what did you do with it? Because I've seen you've had a ribbon cutting. You are open. What is Dana Village?
So Dana Village is dedicated to establishing an innovative approach to support youth aging out of foster care. It's also designed to address homelessness and to build a workforce ready new generation of workers. And it's kind of that generation that's been lost. And if you look at the kids that age out of foster care, now it's at 19,000 a year come out of the foster care system. 25% of those people end up immediately incarcerated. 25% end up on the street. You'll end up with pregnancies in a short period of time. The 70% of your trafficked victims have touched the foster care system. You start looking at what occurs on the incarceration side, and then the recidivism that's associated with that. And you start to say, okay, if we've got 50% of the homeless who've touched the foster care system, maybe that's what's driving homelessness. And if we can reach youth, kind of that McDonald's approach, when your kid wakes up on a Saturday morning, they watch cartoons and every other commercial is a McDonald's commercial. And you ask them, where do they want to go for dinner? They say McDonald's, right? So
That's guilty.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's the approach that we've taken up there on the campus is let's get to these kids before they have an opportunity to end up on the streets, to end up incarcerated, to end up on drugs. So we've developed this campus to a point where I went out and raised roughly $1 million and renovated one of the dormitories and turned it into 12 two-bedroom apartments and started to get kids and elderly in there because we're mixing them with the elderly to give them that sense of family, that sense of balance that you don't really get when you've been homeless or when you've been in the foster care system. In many cases, not all of them. There's some good families, that are working with them. I then went out and raised another roughly 20 million. We renovated 2 more of the dormitories, and now we're up to 73 apartments up there. So we've got somewhere between 15 to 20 youth. You could imagine if we packed it with 68 youth, you'd have something similar to a college dormitory. It'd be totally out of control. So you really have to manage the process and manage what's going on. And so what we're doing is just basically saying, we're going to give you a place to live. In the Blair area, there's hundreds of jobs, anywhere from the Cargill Biotech campus to Dollar General. We're going to get you into a job, even in transportation. We've got now a transportation program where we can get some of these youth into becoming a truck mechanic, and they end up you can make in 3 years over 6 figures, okay? Well into 6 figures. So the campus is designed to help. It's an intergenerational campus designed to help these youth that are aging out of foster care. And you introduce the elderly because that's not really been a part of these foster youth background. I mean, if you can imagine, and I know I'm rambling here.
Not at all.
If you're 18 years old, you graduate high school, and the family who's housed you now, this is probably on average you're about 3.5 years, 4 years into being in the foster care system. That's the average youth. They've usually been in somewhere between 3 to 5 different homes. And now at 18, you're being turned out to the street. You've never had anyone show up for any of the plays that you've been in, any of the choir, any of the ball games. You've probably not had that support of a family in teaching you how to drive because that costs money. So many of the youth that we have coming to us, excuse me, are, they haven't been taught how to drive. They don't have cars. So there's a lot of work, even down to the point of where you have to teach them how to use the thermostat in their apartment, because you'll get a phone call at 2 a.m. saying, my God, it's so hot in here and it's 102 outside and the humidity is way up. And you go out and you look at their thermometer and it's set on heat at 85 degrees. So, you've got to teach them basic things. And then you got to get into how do you manage your money. And so I got the campus to a point where I realized that it can't be just this guy standing on a corner, beating a drum, playing a guitar, blowing a harmonica, singing to the crowd. I merged with Lutheran Family Services, gave them the campus because these youth need behavioral health. They suffer PTSD at a rate greater than vets. So we needed to get somebody in there who understood how to deal with them. And so I merged with Lutheran Family Services to bring those additional services to these youth so that we get it to the next level. And that's the whole goal, is how do we get these kids from 18 being turned to the street with no skills into jobs, getting them straight, getting them working. And if you can keep them working for a year, as everybody, if they're listening, who's in the service provider area, they know that if we can keep them working for a year, the chances are well over 90% that they're going to work the rest of their lives. So that's our goal. How do you get this kid from point A to point Z and without having them end up in jail?
Ed, what I'm hearing is a lot of moving parts. There is so much to this that you have created and what's going on there. How much did you know in the beginning before you started populating Dana Village versus what did you learn along the way?
Well, it's kind of funny because I go out and when I first started, I'd go out and talk to donors and they'd say, "You're a banker. What are you doing with this, right? And how do you know what to do?" And so they didn't really want to give money at that point. And so it was a lot of hard work and trying to convince them that, yeah, you don't have to be in the system to understand what's going on with it. I mean, use Elon Musk. I mean, the guy knew nothing about cars before he started a car company. He knew nothing about space before he started a space company. You don't have to be in that field to start it up to make it successful. And when you look at all the moving parts, again, I started with Project Homeless Connect Omaha. I launched that back in 2007. I partnered with Creighton University, sent buses out, picked up the homeless, brought them back to Creighton. We provided one day where we went from 8 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon. We had over 40 service providers on three of the courts in the Kiewit Center. We had two of the basketball courts filled with doctors and dentists, optometrists who gave them haircuts. We matched them up with an advocate so that someone was there to help them navigate that day. And it grew from 230 to, boy, the last year when COVID hit, we had 650. So it was very successful. It was very productive. We got 12% of the people who attended the event into housing within a week of the event. We had got over 100 sets of dentures. We had hundreds of pairs of glasses that we got to people. We, again, got them jobs and got them into housing, which led me to say there's got to be a way to decrease this. My whole goal is, how do I end homelessness? And homelessness has been around from the beginning of time. So I was kind of being delusional and thinking that I could actually end homelessness, but I'd sure like to put a dent in it before I leave this earth. And so that's part of the motivation behind how do we make this work and how do we make it successful up on the Dana campus.
I don't think you're delusional at all. I think that if you set your goal high and you hit 75% of it, well, you're a whole lot further along than if you set the goal at 50% and hit 35%. So I think what your approach was just spot on of how you went about this. Has it been an easy thing or a difficult thing as far as staffing goes? Because it takes a lot of people to be able to provide these services.
Well, that was why I merged with Lutheran Family Services. I realized that I couldn't keep running all that I was doing and providing the services that were necessary. I had a great group. To launch this, I partnered with 16, 17 service provider organizations, two kids in foster care, Nebraska Children and Families, Project Everlast, Omaha Door and Window, Omaha Home for Boys, Boys Town, just a number of different organizations to give me that knowledge because I don't have that knowledge. And as you alluded to, and so I brought in as many people as I could that were smarter than me to say, here's exactly how you do this. And we learned along the way and we made mistakes along the way because we were all learning. We all had notions and assumptions that we thought would be successful. And you just keep fine tuning it. When you've got people that really care, you can get there. So going back to how do you make it work, or how do you get it there, is you bring in a lot of people that are smarter than you and you give them free reign, and then you bring in this other organization that can provide that push and the impetus and the name to now take you out to donors, to go out to people and say, okay, here we really do have a viable product. And we're still learning. Okay, it was a learning process when you had 13 kids and an elderly woman in there, and they called her grandma. And she was a year younger than me, so I have no idea what they call
Wow.
me. So, um, and it so now you've got 73 people out there. You've got and exponential. It's like having kids. Okay, one kid's fine, everybody can do it, and two, they think, oh, it's just another kid. Well, no, it grows exponentially. Okay, it's not the same as having an additional. So now we've got 73 people out there. So you've really got a huge organization that you're managing and a process that has to be managed. And you introduce the different elements. Lutheran Family Services has now become CCBHC approved. So now they can provide additional services to these kids to help them on the behavioral health care side, on the mental health care side, because you'll get a youth that wants to go to work, but they're not used to dealing with the issues that are associated with it. They've worked at McDonald's where you make $15, $18 an hour, and if you don't like it, you quit and you go down the road to Burger King. Well, you've got to manage those processes, and I'm sure we'll probably get into it later. But when these kids go to work for companies and they're making $18 an hour, and Dollar General comes in and says, "Well, we'll put you to work out here on the loading dock and or on the distribution facility, and you'll make $21 to $24 an hour." Well, that youth's going to jump. I mean, they're no different than what you and I are, and we've got great success stories. We've got kids that we've got into the Welders Union, and pictures of him on the website. He's up on a building in downtown Omaha. He's now a welder. We've got kids that are in transportation up in Blair and now working for Woodhouse that are doing very well. We've got a young woman who came to us underage, took months to get her in. We got her to a point where she could move in. She got her first apartment. It was fully furnished. She cried. She, couldn't believe it. She threw herself into getting a job. She also earned her CNA, and after 14 months, she's moved out and back in Omaha working as a CNA, taking her course. So she, as she says, she wants to become an attorney and help foster kids. So, there's stories that have come out of this. There's been great successes and there's been great failures. It's not, all positive. You get your negatives as well, but you kind of expect it. And if you manage them, then you can take care of those that are pushing to succeed.
We had a
Sorry,
conversation
I'm
recently.
rambling at you here.
We had a conversation recently with a gentleman here in Council Bluffs named Randy Fontaine, who works with homeless people every day. And one of the things that he stresses is what can happen with a homeless person when they spend years on the street, and mentally, that when you're sitting in that survival mode for so long, it can change your brain chemistry and create a place where it's hard to shift out of that. Is that something that is addressed at Dana Village when you're working with homeless people?
Well, the nice thing about it is if we catch them young enough that it's not totally ingrained in their head. Okay, you still have the fight or flight
Mm-hmm.
mentality, but you don't have it so ingrained that you can't work. There are some kids who've suffered terribly. Okay, they're going to be affected the rest of their lives, and God bless them. I hope they find what's necessary as they move forward, because they've had very hard lives. But you can't focus on everybody. You've got to take those and say, let's make this a success and let's focus on this right now. Then you look at those same groups of people and you say, how do we expand it? In which direction do we expand it? So that you keep expanding that range so that, okay, you take these kids that can work and these kids that can get to work and they can drive. So that's number one. Okay. Number two, you get a van and now you can take in more kids who, and I say kids, I'm 68. So I know I should be calling them youth because that's what they are. They're young adults. But everybody's a kid. You're a kid to me. You look at this.
Yeah,
So
once you're 68, you'll look back on being 18 and you'll say, "Yeah, I was a kid."
yeah, I was a
Yeah,
kid.
just
Yeah,
not when
shoot, I
you're
think at
18, you don't
30,
say
I
it,
was
but
a
later you
kid,
do.
right? But so you expand, you take in kids now who you can get to work because you got a van. So as we've expanded now and we're CCBHC approved, don't ask me what the acronym stands for. They tell me probably every other day and I can't remember it. But it just means that we can provide the behavioral health care on a similar basis to what, not a similar basis, but where the Charles Drew Clinic, okay, where they provide medical, we can provide the behavioral health side, and so we were state approved, and so it gives us the opportunity now to expand those kids and to expand that range that we're working with up on the campus. So yeah, good question.
Where do you see this going? Obviously, there is going to be a limit at Dana Village for a population and for folks that you can have being residents there. Is this something that you can see being in other locations and growing into serving other areas?
Yeah, that's another great point because when we started this, the goal was let's get Dana College, which had gone bankrupt, up and running. Again, it was 17 buildings and 500,000 square feet and 151 acres. So you start doing some horse trading and working with the city and you put things together and you get the streets done, you get lighting, you get some buildings torn down that are old, and you start consolidating and you sell some land off because you don't need 151 acres. So you start bringing the money in different ways. And so I could foresee this spreading to other areas. I've already had phone calls from Illinois and as far away as Oregon on what do you do? How do you do it? How did you establish it? And how do you build and develop it? And so, yeah, I could see this growing across the country. We've got 19,000 youth. Again, this is a workforce that people have ignored. When you can say 25% of these kids end up homeless, 25% end up incarcerated, that's 50%. So every year, this 20,000 kids that comes out, 10,000 of them fall through the cracks. Well, what if we figured out how to get them working? What if you figured out how to put them into programs where they're making money and they're growing and you work with them to take those next steps? This is something that every year you could get 10,000 kids that come out of this thing and you could get them into jobs and businesses and support the community.
I'm going to ask something that I've asked to a lot of people that are involved in the nonprofit world. It's obvious, Ed, that you have a true passion for this, and this passion runs pretty deep. Where do you think that came from? What put your mind on this path that this is a need that you want to attempt to meet?
Well, it's funny because back when I was growing up, I grew up on 45th and Pine, roughly in Omaha, and
Yeah, it was called West
the
Omaha back then, right?
back then, yeah, Mercy High School, it was way out there. The Up the street from us was Veterans Hospital and County Hospital, and my mom always made sure that if you were going to do something in the summertime, you had to give back. And so I was always working at either Veterans or County Hospital volunteering because that's what my mom had pushed me into. So I'd say a lot of it comes from there. You then grow up and sort of and get into college and high school and you forget about all that stuff. And then one day it comes back to you. And I've had people ask me, well, how do you do this? This is just amazing stuff up here. And I say, honestly, you just put one foot in front of the other. And sometimes the step works and sometimes you fall down and sometimes you have to take two back, but you just keep walking. And It's how we all got into learning how to run and be athletes is we crawled first. And I think that's kind of what happened was my mother pushed me into this, and it it resounded and came back.
You bring up an excellent point, something that is actually a topic that I talked about on the very first show that I did with
Mhm.
this, that I don't know what this show's going to be. I have no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I started on a Monday. I don't know what we're doing on Wednesday, but we're going to start and we're going to
Yeah.
learn as we go. And it's okay to do that. We sometimes think that, perfection has to be the goal. And if we make a mistake, that we've somehow failed. And that couldn't be further from the truth. And I have a
Mhm.
feeling that there's a lot of young people that are going through your program there that are learning that same lesson.
Well, it's like you say, I mean, if you're afraid to fail, then you're never going to get ahead. So you've really got to take that step. I mean, I'm sure Bill Gates, when he was working in his garage, and his mom came out and said, "You're crazy." Okay, right? I mean, it's all parents
Right.
do at some point, right? But if you're afraid to fail, you're never going to succeed. So with these kids, I look at them and say, what do I need to do to make them better? What am I lacking up here right now? What do I get into them? What do I get into their hands so they can advance? Okay, is it a transportation program because we've got trucking companies and the automotive dealerships up in Blair? Okay, so there's got to be something we can put together because there's a shortage of drivers, there's a shortage of mechanics. If things go EV, there's definitely a shortage of mechanics, and that's a field that these people can work in for years to come. So, what do I need to do to help them succeed and make it so they see that vision and they understand that this is for them? It's not for something else.
Before you and I started this morning, as we were recording this, I was working on a podcast for a client of mine. And the podcast is called Circle of Trades. And it has an HVAC company and a plumbing company with his son. And what you're talking about is a lot of the things that he has talked about, that there is a lot of opportunities out there for folks that want to have that particular opportunity. Not everybody's into getting their hands dirty and,
Mhm.
and spending the day sweating. Or you talked about the trucking company. I have a friend of mine that back when we were in high school or we were in grade school, we used to, this is back when Smokey and the Bandit came out. Remember the show BJ and the Bear?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, semi drivers. So we used to sit like in third grade at lunch and talk about having our own trucking company. Well, he went ahead and did it. Now he's a millionaire with close to 100 of his own trucks and another 100 independent operators working for him.
Okay.
But you're right that for those that have that as a goal and a dream, and hey, I really like to do this. And I'm guessing too that many of these young people weren't aware that this was a skill they had or a desire that they had until they were given an opportunity to see what this field was all about.
Well, the big thing comes in the way of trust. Okay, you can present all you want to these youth, and um, there's an element of trust that has to be built because they don't get why you're wanting to give this to them. Okay, and because everybody who's had them or dealt with them, not everybody, that's a bad statement, but a lot of these kids, every people who've come into their lives have taken advantage of them, so they don't understand why you would do this without having some recompense for it. So um, you've got to get them to understand that you don't care. Okay, it's not for me. Okay, when I got it from Frank Krejci, I got it for free, and when I gave it to Lutheran Family Services, I gave it for free. I didn't make any money off this, and off these kids, I'm not making any money whatsoever, and either is Lutheran Family Services. And so when we get these youth in, and when you're talking about building a trucking company, I'm talking to them about doing that. Why can't you do that? What is keeping you from building your company? What's keeping you from getting a job and keeping that job and growing? What is it that you don't have that you think you need to take that next step? Okay. And so, my background, I was in banking, okay, finance. I've been in finance my whole life, and pretty much, except for when my dad put me under a truck and made me grease it. That was a long
Been
time
there.
ago. And, I realized I needed to go to college. Okay. So at some point, I realized this stuff. Okay. And all I'm trying to do is to help these kids get to that next level. Okay. What do we need to provide? How do we do it? And I'd take every kid I could. I've got 6 openings up there right now. If there's kids that need to get in, we'd love to get them up there. Okay. And we'd love to have those that aren't going to be a lot of trouble, but that's not always the case, especially when you're 18 and it's your first apartment. And um, so there's work that's involved, but the whole thing is supporting the youth, getting them to that next level, getting them to feel confident in themselves and comfortable with what they're doing.
Boy, that yeah, statement, why not you? That's
Yeah.
powerful. It's
Yeah.
very powerful. And in a lot of cases, it's not just kids in the foster program, it's kids everywhere. They've never thought about it. It's never been asked of them that why
Mhm.
not you? You can do this. It's it's possible and there's a path to get there if this is a desire that you have. I'm vastly impressed by what you're doing and how you're doing it. I think is even more important because this is legitimately changing lives. And at the same time, we're growing a society, we're filling jobs that were going unfilled before. There's so many things that are involved with this that are just yes, why is this not happening everywhere?
Yeah. Yeah. And it should be. I mean, you've got all these vacant buildings. I just had lunch with a gentleman last week, and we were talking about all the vacant buildings and vacant places around Omaha, and why can't the big thing with donors and funding sources is they're very kind in their donations, and they give to a lot of different things, but maybe it's time to step back and say, how do we combine these? How do we put them together so that we focus on how do we take homelessness and we get all these different agencies that are doing the same thing or maybe something just a little different, get them together so that we're not just putting band-aids on things anymore and we actually do great work. I mean, over here, Mom's Place and what they're doing down there, you can look at it. It's a great thing, right? I mean, and they've expanded it. And Pastor Waller was a mentor of mine. And when I had questions, I'd go talk to him. So he's been in here, and I love his daughter, Brandy. And you look at what they've done and you say, we should be doing more of this. And there's more that we can do. And they've looked at it and said, what can we do? Where are we failing? And they said, veterans. So let's go launch something for veterans. And there's I'd love to be able to get all the donors and all the money that has to come out and say, let's build an arrow and let's shoot it at a target, and let's take some of these spaces and let's start turning this into something different. And how do we help these people with mental illnesses, and how do we help the behavioral issues with not just youth, but where do we start? How do we start it? Let's come up with a comprehensive plan. I get everybody screaming housing and let's get them all housed. But the problem is they're so used to being in a community with each other that you separate them and put them into a house. They don't want to stay, and they're finding that they leave. And yeah, do you have the supportive care necessary for them? In most cases, they do, but those people want to be with their friends, with the other people, and now you've separated them and they're alone. And with a mental illness, that's not a great thing to do. So there's smarter people out there than me, and we got to be able to come up with something better than we're doing.
Yeah, there may be smarter people, but Ed, I don't know if there's more passionate people. And I'm grateful for all of the work that you're doing. And I want to find out how we can help spread the word. If someone wants to support what you're doing or they want more information, is that available out there online?
Yeah, it's online at Dana Village. If you go to Lutheran Family Services website and go to Dana Village, that's out there. They can call me directly. Anybody that wants to talk. I've still got all of the texts from all the kids that I had when it was just me, and I get texts from them saying, "Hey, I'm going to school and I want to be a social worker. Can you write me a letter of recommendation?" And I get calls from people saying they've done well. So call me, text me, whatever. I'm taking great ideas. If you got a good idea, call me.
Well, Ed, grateful for your time, grateful for your work, and I'm hopeful that this is not the last time we talk. I would,
Hey, Todd, congratulations on your podcast here. I've heard such great things about you and from people who've been on it, and it sounds like you're doing great things. So keep up the great work, and I really appreciate you putting me on your show. Thank you.
homelessness seems to be at the top of everyone's list of things to talk about right now with the election that's coming up in Council Bluffs. I'm seeing it all over online. Well, take a look. There's work already being done, and this is just another example of how they are helping in that area. Since 1870, Avela Bank has been providing Iowans with high-quality financial products and services to fit their needs. Whether you need a loan, would like to start a new business account, saving money for a trip, or looking to open a personal checking account, Avela's qualified bankers can help you with all of that and more. Visit avela.bank to learn more. Cindy Schmader, well, one of my favorite people. Service Master Restored by Schmader knows it can be hard to get back to normal when you've suffered serious property damage due to flooding, fire, or smoke. Maybe you need mold remediation. She can do hoarding cleanup. So many different things that Cindy, that Cindy can do. And you want to get a hold of her, Service Master Restorer by Schmader. And Just Sue Creative, this is Sue Pitts, who has been doing a lot of work to my website, her own website, justsuecreative.com, has a different feel and is just as effective. One of the comments that I hear when people go to my website is, wow, that looks really clean and it's easy to read. Yeah, because Sue's good at what she does. So if you would like her help with website design, search engine optimization, content creation, marketing, go to justsuecreative.com, click on that free consultation button, click a time, and then you'll be on your way. JustSueCreative.com. Thank you again, Ed Shada, not only for being on the show today, but for the work that you're doing. It is needed, and I am encouraged that this is something that I could see growing all across the country. That's going to wrap up today's show. Thank you for watching. My name's Todd Studer. We'll see you back here tomorrow morning.